Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear students. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear students, pleased to meet you again in our 8th lecture, our 8th lesson. And today's lesson, or today's lecture will be, of course, different, and it will be right into the real literary works of American writers. So we'll start with samples of American literature, and we start with the first genre, as you know, what we usually expect, literature courses to start with when they are supposed to discuss more than one genre. So we usually start with poetry as one of the oldest and could be also most important and the origin of literary works. Okay, our first genre, poetry, is taken from the poetry of Emily Dickinson. Okay, Emily Dickinson is one of the most famous American writers, American poets, lived between 1830 and 1886. Okay, of course, Emily Dickinson is a woman, is a female writer, a female poet, very famous one. Okay, this is one of her famous or most famous poetry pieces. Before we start with the poem itself, because the poem is very well explained for you and analyzed, so I'll just skim with you these slides about the poem. But before I start with the poem itself, I'd rather to start with the end of the lecture. I mean, with the last two slides, the last two slides that talk about the literary terms, okay, poetic literary terms, which is very important. Before we start analyzing any piece of poetry, we need to know these terms, and you need, for the final exam also, you need to know the definition of each literary term with examples, okay, with examples on each one. I hope that some of these literary terms you have already learned or you studied in other courses. So the terms are put for you in an alphabetical order, so it's easy to refer to them. And I intended to just give you the terms that are very much related to what you are going to study in this course. So there are, of course, a lot of other literary terms referred to poetry, but here I just put the most important ones and the ones that you expect to find in the poems that we are going to cover this lecture. For poetry, we'll have only this lecture. Okay, so next lectures will be on new genres. The first literary term is alliteration, and as you see, alliteration is the repetition of the initial sound in neighboring words. And when you repeat sounds at the beginning of the words, okay, that means alliteration, as what you see here, sa, sa, sa. Okay, this is alliteration, as sweet, smell, success, sa, sa, sa. That is what is called alliteration. Okay, so remember that alliteration should be in neighboring words in one line. Okay, in one line, not in two different lines. So then the second example here, dime, dozen, da, da. Then the third example is bigger, better, ba, ba. Okay, and so on. This is what is called alliteration. Next is what is called anaphora. Anaphora is also the repetition of a word or a phrase, okay, at the beginning of several successive verses. Okay, repetition of a word or a phrase, okay, or even a sentence at the beginning of lines of verses, at the beginning of lines of poetry, okay, like what we have here. We have a good example in because I could not stop for death, okay, like, you know, when Emily Dickinson says, we passed the fields, we passed the, okay, we passed, okay, that is the most yani, clear example, okay, it's very clear. So there are many other examples we'll have in the maybe second poem. So it's just repetition of the first, repetition of a word or a phrase, okay, or a clause at the beginning of a line of poetry. Successive, يعني they have to be successive, okay, يعني ورا بعضهم لازم يكون, to be considered as anaphora. الميتافور always, you know, connected to simile. So metaphor and simile both are kind of comparisons. So we talk here about, let's say, first metaphor. Metaphor is a comparison where when comparing that, it means that when we compare two unlike things without using the tools, okay, or the means of comparison, اللي هم words like as, such as, and like, as, such as, without using these words, okay, comparing two unlike things of, يعني unlike things, يعني comparing two things of different nature, to compare a person with a lion, a lady with a flower, a man with the sun, or with the sword, okay, okay, a lady with the moon, okay. Here, two things of different nature, comparing two things of different nature, but without saying like or as. So we say Ahmad is a lion, huh? Ahmad is a lion. هنا نقول Layla is a flower, okay. هنا في عنا other examples. He is a horse. He eats like a horse, huh? Thou art sunshine. You are sunshine. Okay, these are examples of metaphor. If the tool is used, يعني لو قلنا he is like a horse, this is simile. Okay, comparing two things using the tools. But here metaphor without the tools of comparison. Okay, he is like a horse. Huh? هذا simile. He is a horse. This is metaphor. So metaphor is comparing, it's a figure of speech, comparing two unlike things without using the tools of comparison, اللي هم الwords اللي هم that are used to يعني to clarify or to compare two things like as, such as, or like. Okay, meter is refers to varying nevertheless recognizable patterns, stressed and unstressed syllables that occur in regular units in the lines of verses. When we talk about meter, we talk about, you know, stress and stress syllables in each line. لأنه each line of verse, each line of poetry, each line in a poem is divided into syllables. Okay, syllables, مقاطع, and each syllable is called foot, and each foot is divided into two syllables. Or let's say every foot is divided into two syllables. Okay, every foot is divided into two syllables: stressed, unstressed, or unstressed, stressed. Okay, it depends on how it is pronounced. Okay, then a line of poetry is divided usually into, when we want to find the meter of a poem, okay, so we divide each line into feet, okay, and each foot usually contains two or more, or could be sometimes one syllable, and these syllables are, you know, either stressed, unstressed, okay, or unstressed, stressed. Okay, مثلا come live with me, huh? Okay, this is a very famous poem of Shakespeare. Come live with me and be my love. Come live, هذا foot. Come live هنا. Come live, unstress, stress. with me unstress stress with me ها اللي هو البيتس like da 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 okay unstress stress unstress unstress okay unstress stress okay unstress stress okay of course these the syllables okay and being stress and stress and the number of feet has different names. So the name of the lines okay with the kind of stress and unstress has different names okay like what we call in Arabic اللي هو زي أبحر الشعر okay في العربي اللي هو الهزج والوافر وال okay البحر الطويل okay هو أنا برضو it's يعني about the same talk about meter here we talk about the same idea depending upon the number of feet in line. A line of that can be called monometer if has 1 foot. لو كان عندنا line من مقطع واحد foot واحد بنسميه monometer. If 2 we call it diameter, 3 trimeter, etc. till we come to 9 that is called nonometer. Okay. Then we have kinds of meters. We have اللي هو iambic as the most important and frequent in use in English poetry اللي هو iambic pentameter اللي هو of 5 feet. Iambic اللي هو unstress stress come live with me unstress stress unstress stress. Okay, we call it the iambic pentameter. Okay, 5 feet and the 5 feet and each foot has 2 syllables and each syllable starts with unstress stress unstress stress da 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 da. Okay, the next term is paradox. A paradox is what we call or what we consider a contradictory statement, or a statement that sounds to be not true or foolish or impossible at the surface, but when it is studied, thought about, when you think more about it and read it again and again, you find it true and makes sense. Okay, reveals a kind of truth which at first seems contradictory. Okay, a statement that at first doesn't seem to be true or seems to be silly or foolish. Okay, but after thorough reading, deep reading, you find it true and makes sense. Okay, here which also it means also the 2 opposing ideas. Okay, and having one idea that express 2 opposing ideas that you at first you think it's not true, but thinking deeply about it you find it true and makes sense. Okay, stone walls do not a prison make, nor iron bars a cage. Okay, that is a very clear paradox. And other paradoxes that are very famous in literature like in one of John Donne's poems, Death Be Not Proud. Okay, at the end of the poem the poet says, addressing death, and he tells death, death thou shall die. Okay, death you will die. This is sort of a paradox. Okay, at surface sounds strange, it sounds contradicting itself, or it sounds sort of contradictory here. Okay, or seems not to be true, but when you think about it you find it's true. Okay, that death dies in the day hereafter, in the second life, in the eternal life. Okay, so death thou shall die. Okay, this is also a paradox. Another paradox that I usually use with my students, as when you say today's yesterday's tomorrow. When you think about the statement, you find it seems contradictory, and has opposing ideas or silly saying. But thinking deeply about it, you find it true and makes sense. Okay, this is paradox. Next is personification. Personification, simply speaking, is making non-living things as living things, making inanimates اللي هو non-living things as animates اللي هو living things. أو إيش as you have here giving human qualities to what? To animals أو objects اللي هو non-human objects أو things أو creatures. Okay, so making non-living things as living things. Okay, making non-living things as non-living things أو making inanimates as animates. Okay, اللي هو مثلا when you say a smiling moon, a dancing tree, a sleeping, city, a jovial sun, a screaming, and the wind is screaming, the sky is crying. This is all personification. يعني we make the non-living things as living things. Okay. Rhyme. This is also important. Next page. Rhyme. اللي هو as we call it in Arabic اللي هي القافية اللي هو the final sound. Okay. Or the sound that comes at the end of each line of verse and repeated in a certain poem. Okay. اللي هو الفاينل sound, not letter, sound. We talk about final. When two similar sounding words are repeated in a stanza of a poem. Okay, here we have an example. So when we repeat two similar sounds at the end of a line of verse, we call it rhyme. So like we say sun, next time we say bun. Okay, and then next line we say eat, fourth we say beat. So sun, bun, eat, beat. So we call the first sound A, sun, bun, A, seat, meat, B. Okay, fake steak, fake bake, C. Okay, Y die, D. Okay, this is what we call a rhyme. اللي هو repeated similar sounding words are repeated in a stanza of a poem is known as rhyme. Rhymes that appear on the end of the lines are called end rhyme in this most common type of rhyme in poetry. Okay. Now when we talk about rhyme we talk about the end rhyme اللي هو ده يعني the rhyme that comes at the end of the lines of poetry in a poem. Okay, لكن there is also what is called internal rhyme. Sometimes an internal rhyme is used. يعني internal rhyme that is within the line. Within one line of poetry, we have sometimes some words that rhyme, and this is called internal rhyme. Like we say, and then when Richard Cooley walked downtown, okay, he fall in the mall, okay, fall mall, okay, fall in the mall. He had a ball. That's within the line itself. We call it internal rhyme. Apart from this, more, other than this about, rhymes, we have also two kinds of rhymes, what is called masculine line and feminine line. Okay, a masculine line that also refers you to the stress, اللي هو الميتر, the stress or unstressed syllables. So, if a line ends with a stressed syllable, it is a masculine. Okay, if it ends with a stressed syllable, it's masculine. If the line ends with unstressed syllable, it's feminine. Okay. Rhyming words that end with a stressed syllable is called masculine. Okay, come live with me and be my love. هنا masculine. Okay. لو كانت العكس كان live with me and be my love. Okay. لو كان ما هو love هنا مشددة كانت بالعكس غير مشددة يعني unstressed, we call it إيش feminine. Okay. إذن masculine rhymes or feminine rhymes. So if the line ends with a stressed syllable, we call it masculine. If it ends with unstressed vowel, we call it masculine. The opposite. If it ends in a stressed vowel, we call it masculine. If it ends in unstressed syllable, we call it feminine. Okay, here see the example of this page. We have roses are red, violets are blue, sugar is sweet, and so are you. Here we have blue you. These are rhymed. We have blue you, ooh, ooh. Okay, then the next example is clearer. As you see, how does the little crocodile, okay, shining tail of the Nile, golden scale. So we have here 4 words. Crocodile, have the A, tail, B, Nile, A, scale, B. So we have A, B, rhyme is called here A, B. We have crocodile, Nile, tail, scale. Okay, these the first and the third line rhyme. They rhyme. Second will fourth also rhyme. So the first one we call it, we give it the letter A. We say A, B, crocodile, Nile, tail, scale. Okay, I hope it's clear. Next is simile, which is also very basic figure of speech. It is also a kind of comparison, comparing two unlike things, but here with using the tools of comparison such as like and as. Okay, using like, as, or such as. These are the tools of comparison. So if we say he eats like a horse, he eats like a horse, he eats as a horse. Okay, هنا similarly لأنه استعملنا like or as. Okay, I mean she is like a flower. Okay, she is like a flower. She's as beautiful as a flower. هنا as, comparing a lady to a flower using as or like. هنا comparing a person to a horse. Okay? He is like a lion. Simile. He's as strong as a lion. Simile. Okay, but always remember, simile and metaphor, they compare two unlike things. يعني you don't consider let's say saying مثلا Ahmed is like his father. This is not, Layla is like her mother. This is not a kind of comparison. I mean, let's say literary comparison. This is a normal type of comparison or simile, but you don't consider to be a literary comparison or figure of speech, because a simile and a metaphor, both of them compare two unlike things. يعني things of different natures. Okay, so this is simile. Stanza is اللي هو a group of lines in a poem. Okay, in a poem, like a paragraph in prose. In poetry, a group of lines, we call it a stanza. They come together as one unit. Okay, so some poems are divided into stanzas, 2, 3, 4, maybe more. Okay, it depends. Theme is also an important figure of speech. اللي هو ايش؟ اللي هو يعني simply speaking, it's the moral lesson that you learn after reading a piece of poetry or any piece of literature. Okay, or it's the idea, the moral lesson, the general idea that the writer conveys or wants to deliver, he or she wants to deliver to the reader. So that is the theme, and don't confuse theme with the topic of the poem or story. Okay, theme is not the topic of the story. Theme is something that you infer, that you understand after reading a poem. Okay, you come up from your own, but has to be relevant to the general topic of the poem or of the story. Okay, theme is the general idea or insight about life that a writer wishes to express. All of the elements of literary terms contribute to the theme. Okay, اللي هم other literate terms like simile, metaphor, anaphora, personification. A simple theme can often be stated as a single sentence. Always, and when you come to stating a theme, state a theme in a meaningful sentence, in a simple statement. طبعا هنا this is again example. After reading this book, poem or essay, I think the author wants me to understand. This is how you may start expressing a theme after reading a poem. A theme is something that you infer, تستنتج استنتاج, okay, that you come up with from your own, but you have to be relevant to the general topic of the poem. The theme can be a quotation from any source that you think this quotation applies, okay, to what is said in this poem. Or it can be a wise saying, a proverb, okay, a quotation from anywhere, okay, from any famous saying, from wherever you think it's possible that you find a good quotation that applies to what you are reading, okay? So don't expect a theme to be, stated in what you read, in the piece of poetry that you read. But usually the title of the poems or of the stories, they indicate to the theme. They refer, they give an idea about the general or the theme of the story. Okay, now back to the beginning. Okay, to our first poem, by Emily Dickinson, and this is, I think, it could be the first question for the topics for discussion. So please remember, there is a question about the life of Emily Dickinson. I did not include here in the lecture or in the contents of the lecture because I want you to look for a short biography about this lady, اللي هو poet Emily Dickinson, and that will be in the topics for discussion. And you have to remember, the important parts of her life for the final exam. That will be included in the final exam, and that is also you have to get, look, search for this yourselves and add it in the as an answer for one of the topics for discussion. Okay, this poem is about death, as you see from the title. Emily Dickinson here, expresses her acceptance to death as, something you can't escape. And you talk about, death as, if someone, of course, is religious, he doesn't, fear death, okay? And he or she accepts death, calmly, without being afraid of it. Death is nothing to be afraid of if you are really religious and you know that you have done good things, so you expect a good end for yourself in the day hereafter. Okay, this poem is a type of a lyric, type of a song. Okay, but of course it's not rhymed as many other poems. It's divided into 6 stanzas. As we have just said, a stanza is a group of lines of poetry put together in one unit. Let's read it together once, and then you continue reading the details yourselves. And remember that this will be very important for the final exam. All the details about this poem. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality. We slowly drove, he knew no haste, and I had put away my labor and my leisure too, for his civility. We passed the school where children played, their lessons scarcely done. We passed the fields of gazing grain, we passed the setting sun, or rather, he passed us. The dews grew quivering and chill. For any gossamer, my gown, my tippet only tool tulle or teal. Okay, we paused before a house that seemed a swelling of the ground. The roof was scarcely visible, the cornice but a mound. Since then centuries, but each feels shorter than the day I first surmised the horses' heads were toward eternity. Okay, it's a beautiful story about death, and how a person should accept death as as a destiny, final destiny and unescapable destiny for everyone. Okay, for every creature. Okay. Okay, it's, as I said, it's a lyric, and published 1890. Expresses, Emily Dickinson's calm acceptance of death. Here on this page, we have, a summary of each stanza, giving the situation of each stanza. As you see here, this is very beautifully done and explained for you. Stanza 1, 2, 3, all these until we come to the end of the stanza. You please read yourselves. Okay, it's clear. Okay, so let's go to other parts. Go to the characters. Okay, characters we have here. Remember that we have in this poem, we have the speaker, a woman who speaks from the grave. Okay, which is that represents Emily Dickinson. She says she calmly accepted death. Okay, in fact, she seemed to welcome death as a suitor. Okay, as someone who comes to engage. Okay, to engage to her, whom she planned to marry. Then death, اللي هو suitor, personified as a suitor, who comes to get married of this lady, who called for the narrator to escort her to eternity, to take her to eternity, to accompany her to eternity. Then immortality, a passenger in the carriage, and then children. Okay, these are the characters mentioned in the poem. The speaker, the woman, but then death also is used, is here personified. Now we'll come to it. Then immortality as one of the passengers in the carriage, because the three of them were in the carriage, the speaker, the lady, and death and immortality. They were all in one carriage. Okay, and then passed by school, and then they watched the children playing during the recess. We have notes on the on some of the new words, or some of the words that Gossamer, my gown, اللي هو thin wedding dress for the speaker's marriage to death. Okay, that's a picture, an image. Tippet اللي هو scarf on the neck or shoulder. اللي tulle or teal. Okay, زي بيسموها بالعربي التلة. تلة اللي هو knitting. It's a kind of cloth. Okay, a kind of cloth. House, there was speaker's tomb here. The house here refers to the speaker's tomb or grave. Cornice, okay, this is بالعربي بنسميها الكورنيشة أو الكورنيشة اللي بتكون في بروز في المباني أو في البيوت اللي هو horizontal molding along the top of a wall. بعدين since century, the length of time she has been in the tomb. Okay. Here also to about meter, this is an example of how this poem is divided into feet and syllables, and what kind of meter we have. Okay, in each stanza the first line has 8 syllables. لما نقول 8 syllables يعني 4 feet, لأنه كل foot has 2 syllables. Okay, the second 6 syllables. Okay, اللي هو 6 syllables 3 feet. Okay, each has 2. Okay, the third 8 syllables يعني 4 feet. The fourth stanza 6 syllables 3 feet. Okay, the meter alternates. ما عندها نفس الميتر, يبدو بيغير من stanza لstanza أو من line لline. Okay, the meter alternates between iambic pentameter, tetrameter lines with 8 syllables or 4 feet. هنا iambic tetrameter اللي هو lines with 8 syllables يعني 4 feet. tetrameter 4 feet. iambic شو يعني iambic؟ اللي هو نوع الميتر اللي هو ايش؟ اللي يبدا unstress stress دا 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 unstress stress unstress stress iambic we call it. And as said before in the beginning, this is the most common type of meter in poetry. And this is also very common and could be the only, in a way, but yeah, let's say most frequent and could be the only meter used in Shakespeare's sonnets. Iambic pentameter, level 5 feet. Here we have tetrameter, 4 feet, 8 syllables, iambic. Unstress, stress. Okay? Iambic trimeter lines with 6 syllables, 3 feet. Trimeter اللي هو 3 feet برضو iambic. إذا في عندنا iambic tetrameter, iambic trimeter. Remember, this is very important for the final exam. Okay? This will be very much required for the final exam to know the definition and what is meant by iambic pentameter, iambic tetrameter, iambic trimeter. Okay? In iambic pentameter, the feet pairs of syllables contain unstressed syllable followed by stressed syllable. Okay? Look at the example here. Look at the example of what we call iambic 1 2 3 4 اللي هو iambic tetrameter. Iambic tetrameter. Because I could not stop for death. Huh? See? The اللي هو be unstressed. Cause stressed. اوكي مقطع عندنا 1 2 3 4 شو بنسمي كل واحد؟ بنسميه foot 4 feet. بعدين كل foot has 2 syllables because. الآن كل foot في مقطع مشدد مقطع غير مشدد. بما انه بيبدأ غير مشدد مشدد غير مشدد مشدد غير مشدد مشدد ها يعني unstressed stressed unstressed. stressed شو بنسميه هذا النوع؟ iambic pentameter. iambic هذا unstressed iambic. 4 feet شو بنسميه؟ tetrameter. اذا بنسميه iambic tetrameter. اوكي الثلاث اللي بعد اللي تحت عندنا 3 feet هنا trimeter. وشو نوعه؟ iambic لانه unstressed. اذا بنسميه trimeter. iambic trimeter. برضه نفس الشيء. he kindly stopped for me. He unstressed, kind stressed, Lee unstressed, stopped stressed, for unstressed, me stressed, and so on. The carriage held but just ourselves. Okay. Next line, and and immortal. T. Okay, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed. Okay. The end rhyme هنا, the rhyme here is not that clear, so not like many other poems. The second and fourth lines of stanza 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 rhyme. Okay. The second and fourth line. بس السكند والفورث line. Okay. If you go back to second and fourth line of stanza 1, 2, خلينا نقول second and fourth اللي هو me immortality. Okay, me immortality. Okay, بعدين away civility. بعدين next اللي هو 4 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 اللي هو chill و tell. We call it, we pronounce it as tell and tool. Okay, so we say chill and tell, or till. Okay, so these rhyme. In the third stanza, there is no end rhyme. Okay, some lines do not rhyme, or some stanzas do not rhyme. Next is very important, هو figures of speech. في عنا a lot of examples on alliteration in this poem. as اللي هو new no. Okay, new no n new no. بعدين next line my. Okay, my leisure sorry my labor my leisure. بعدين labor leisure ll لا ما. Okay, بعدين next فين at recess in the ring ra and so on. Okay, في عنا جا تي. Okay, والأخير t. Of course, as I said before, should be at the beginning, toward eternity. Next is also important, anaphora. Another example of anaphora. Here we talked about anaphora, and here we said it's the repetition of a word or a clause in successive lines, two or more. Okay, as we pass the fields, we pass the sitting, we pass the. This is an example of what? Anaphora. Paradox is also we talked about, like death, thou shalt not die, or today's, yesterday's, tomorrow. Okay, since then centuries, and yet each feels shorter than the day I first surmised the horses' heads. Had an example of a paradox that seems to be contradictory. Okay, personification is also important because death all through the poem is personified. Okay, is made. Okay, is made as a person, talked with, being addressed as a person. Okay, we passed the setting sun, or rather he passed us. He passed the setting sun. Okay, this is personification. Or rather he passed us, death. Okay, comparison of the sun to a person. Okay, comparison sun to a person, that is personification. Death is personified throughout the poem. Okay, طبعا death واضح في كل البويم هو personified. Okay, لما نقول because I could not stop for death he kindly stopped for me. He kindly stopped. مين هو he? death. إذن he هنا الdeath برضه تم تشخيصه، عمله أو تعامل معه كإنسان كشخص. Okay, then he is personified. Death is personified. He kindly stopped for me, as if death a person. Okay, وبرضه نفس الشيء death في كل المقاطع تقريبا is personified as an example of personification. He kindly stopped for me. Okay, the carriage held us, ourselves, and immortality. We slowly drove. He knew no haste. Death. He knew no haste. When a personification. Okay. For his civility لطفه. Okay, للطفه لوداعته لرحمته. His civility برضه هنا personification. Okay, the poem has many examples of personification. Okay, next example, another poem by Emily Dickinson. Okay, this lady. Okay, say about hope, and this is sort of a universal theme here. Telling telling people that there is always hope, and hope can be in the life of any human being, regardless to his race, religion, regardless to where he lives. Okay, and life is impossible without the gleam of hope. Okay, so when there is hope, there is life. Okay, hope. Okay, the poem. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetness in the gale is heard, and so must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chilliest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. Okay, this is a very beautiful picture of hope, and just comparing hope to a bird. hope is like just a bird with يعني main comparison here between hope and a bird. So hope is like a bird, and why it's because like a bird, because a bird is a symbol of freedom. Okay, it symbolizes freedom because usually birds are very free. They just fly, go everywhere without limits. So hope is just يعني wish to be like a bird. Hope is similar to a bird in its ability to bring comfort and consolation. Dickinson here uses techniques such as extended metaphor imagery to describe hope throughout the poem. So the poem here, all of the poem is all about hope and described through metaphor and comparison أو simile اللي هو comparing the hope أو hope sorry to a bird. Okay, again, the poem is explained very well for you in the following pages, following slides, very clearly. You need to read them all. Okay. These are all explanations. And of course, generally speaking, as the one before, of Emily Dickinson, these poems are simple in language and in style, and in structure. Sorry, okay. But they have deep meanings at the same time, and as I said before, they have sort of a universal. They have universal themes. They discuss universal themes that themes that concern anyone, anywhere. The poem, is here. It ends with if asked to a camp of me yet. 1 minute. Here, there's a definite contrast within the poem between hope on one side and as represented with the words like warm, soul, sweetest, and in the pain of life as represented in words like storm, gale, chillest. Okay, see the comparison here and the contrast between hope and pain of life. Hope as something sweet, warm, as something spiritual, while pain of life compared to storm, gales, chillest, okay, يعني negative things in general. Although there is a clear battle between these two elements, lower hope and pain in life, that's of course always true. There's always sort of a struggle, conflict between hope and pain of life. It's clear that whatever the battle we may face, hope wins through in the end. Okay, you expect hope to win at the end of any struggle. That hope is part of it. And next here we have next examples. I have just examples of Harlem. Poetry from Harlem Renaissance. Okay, you need to read these poems and find out, rhyme, rhythm, figures of speech. Okay, of course, the situation. What these poems are about. Okay. And of course, the poets of each of these, not all of them, and some of them there is also a question, or there are other questions about, biographies of these, famous writers, okay, like the second one, اللي هو Langston Hughes. I think, also there is a question about writing a biography about, Langston Hughes, okay, another, these are all famous American writers. Last, example or sample of poetry from Harlem Renaissance, The Negro Speaks of Rivers by Langston Hughes. You also need to read this, understand it, find, the rhyme, if there is rhyme, if it is rhymed, and then figures of speech, and then the theme in each of these. So the same questions and the same points that we discussed, or that you have already discussed in the first poem, اللي هو Because I Could Not Stop for Death, you need to do the same for the other three, I think, for the other 3 poems. And that will be very much required in the final exam, okay? So that's all for today. Please, if you have any questions, please contact me through my email, or you can, of course, call me during my office hours. You will be most welcome, and you also prepare your questions for our first live session that will be very soon, okay? Thank you very much, and see you very soon in our next lecture. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. كم يا سام؟